Okay, I'd like to call our meeting to order. It's 7:02, May 11th, 2022, Town of Southington Board of Finance meeting, and we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Zelny?
Here.
Mr. Morrison?
Here.
Mr. Bedoin?
Here.
Mr. Pocock? Here. Mr. Lebenik is absent.
He is not here at this
And
moment.
Chairman Larry.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. We have two, is this thing working well? We have two public hearing items tonight. The first one is an ordinance appropriating $6,920,000 for the cost related to the Southington High School roof project and authorizing the issue of $6,920,000 in bonds and notes to finance the appropriation. The amount of such bonds and notes to be reduced by the amount of any project grants received. And do we have anyone who'd like to speak on that ordinance? This is the roof, high school roof.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll give an introduction if you don't. Introduction. This is a request through the Town Council, through the Board of Education. Most of you recall that many years ago we did a partial correction of the roof for about $2.6 million. This completes the rest of that. The roof is in need of repair. We also are planning to include some solar panels on there to offset some energy costs in the future. And we're hoping that you give it a favorable recommendation back to the Town.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak on the roof?
Richard Cooper, 79 Barbara Lane. Good evening, esteemed ladies and gentlemen of this Board of Finance. Thanks for doing this. I guess I'm generally in favor of this because our schools need to have good roofs. I guess I'd be a lot more sold just to know, have some assurance that this roof, will last more than, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this current roof lasted about 25 years? 27 years. So I would just hope that, this time, it has a longer life. Excuse me. Having said that, I think it's probably, this is probably a good time to issue notes and bonds. So generally in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for coming out. Anybody else like to speak on the roof? Okay.
For the board yet, or are you going to wait for?
No, we could continue. We have to get, the item will come up later
Correct.
as an item. This is the public hearing
All right.
part, so
All right.
we could hold it.
Thanks.
Okay, no more discussion from the public regarding the roof. Then we'll close the public hearing, that public hearing item number one, and we start public hearing item number two. Number two is an ordinance appropriating $16,940.
Million.
What?
16 million.
An ordinance appropriating $16,945,000 for costs related to the Southington High School athletic fields project and the authorizing of the issue of $16,945,000 in bonds and notes to finance the appropriation.
As a beginning, then I'll turn it over to the board staff. The council is sending this to you for your recommendation back to the council, and the council will have a public hearing on this in 2 weeks. And obviously, I know there's a lot of questions on what's being done and the phasing of that, and I know that the superintendent and his staff are ready to answer any of those questions.
Sure. Welcome.
Good evening. In line with past conversations we've had, specifically regarding the debt service to the town with the two projects that we have coming up, I provided a very simplified version for you this evening of the project phases and the budget. And I'm not sure if that's something that you guys, yep, okay. So the rationale around phase one for this specific part of the project is that knowing that we also have the $6.9 million of the roof that will come on to the debt service at the same time, it essentially what we try to do is spread the debt of the project over 3 years, with the third year being the lowest at $2.3 million, understanding that that may potentially be a year where some debt service may come online relative to the elementary school facilities. So we kept it, as, minimal as we could each year and spread it out over the course of 3 years in order to be cognizant of the debt service to the community.
So we approve it all now, but work over 3 years.
Yes. I don't know if you have any specific questions relative to the project or enhancements. I know several of you were able to join us when we did the walking
Yeah.
tour of the facility, so you were able to see firsthand some of the items of concern and whatnot. But if you have any further questions, the athletic director or my director of operations would be glad to answer.
Just one quick question. Is there any way you can redo the phases so you start with the cheapest one? The way this is in terms of, I see what you got here about the topsoil utilized and everything. Any way that could be done?
I think part of the challenge is there's a ripple effect relative to the movement of certain portions of the field that are going to be under more major renovations, and some of them are subject to the Title IX review from 2015, and so they're a little bit time sensitive in that those are the priority areas. The challenge is once you start cutting into and moving those fields and facilities, it has an impact on related facilities. I don't necessarily see how we could do it in a way that it wouldn't interrupt or impact that Title IX review and the time sensitivity surrounding that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to say, I think these projects are way overdue. I agree with your 3 phases, and hopefully it's going to look really nice. Way out of date. We've fallen behind many schools in Connecticut. Big school, a lot of people play sports, and it's needed because it's the youth sports use it as well. That's what people got to realize, that the youth sports are using these turf fields, so it's a benefit to everybody in town, not just the high school players.
And I'd like to say a few words as well. There are a lot of people who don't know exactly what Title IX means. In the NCAA, women's basketball didn't. Basketball did. Or equal. It's still not equal. Have the same opportunity. No opportunities for athletics. I wouldn't have done it anyway, but I had plenty of friends who would have done those things, and that we 100% equal. So we need to do it. Part of that is so we have to do it. It's not a question of let's put it off till tomorrow just because we don't like the number. We have to do this or we don't have a credit.
Okay, anybody from the public, more public, want to speak? Welcome back.
Once again, thank you, esteemed ladies and gentlemen. What you just said, I hear you. And I'm actually a big, Richard Cooper, 79 Barbara Lane. I am a big supporter of youth sports, and I do think it's very important, for the baseball team, softball team, whatever. I think it's very important for them to have safe, quality fields to play on. I know that kids really look forward to those games. It's very important to them. So that means it's important to me too. So, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I pay a car tax. I live with my parents, but I am a little concerned about. I am a little concerned about the price tag. Watching what's going on globally and nationally. I'm not sure how closely members of this board follow the stock markets, but I'm personally just a little concerned about the trends, generally speaking. I'm just worried more about the timing of it and, the mill rate increasing in the next few years. So that's my only real concern about it, but I do 100% agree that it's very important to invest in the youth and the athletics fields as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call the anybody else, no one else wants to speak? I'll call the second public hearing item closed, and we'll move on to the third thing, which is to set the mill rate for 2022, 2023. And I got to call Mr. Lebenik, who is, actually he's working, he's at a work meeting. He's going to join us for this vote.
As I'm sure you're aware, the governor and the legislature have gotten rid of the sunset clause, which was April 30th, and now hybrid meetings and
Yeah.
call-ins can
You're on the
continue
speaker.
allowed.
Hold on.
They are allowed.
Okay, Joe, I just want to make sure the roll is properly reflects that it is you on the phone.
Yes.
And what we're going to do now, we're at the point in the agenda where we're going to set the mill rate for fiscal year 2022, 2023, based upon the adopted budget by town council. And so everybody knows this is just a straight math exercise. Town council has approved the budget. In fact, they've approved the budget as recommended by the Board of Finance. So there were no changes to our recommendation. Now that budget's coming back to us. They have done their work and they voted Monday night. And now it's our job, and it remains the responsibility and the duty of the Board of Finance as the only board that could set the mill rate. It can't be overridden, and we have that responsibility. And historically, we always set that mill rate based upon the taxes needed to fund the budget. It's a little, I always say this every year, it's a little backward to how a family would operate, where they would look at income first and then decide what their expenses would be. In the town, we look at what our expenses are, and then we look to income. So it puts a lot of responsibility on this board and on the town council, because we actually back into the taxes needed. So at a big picture, high level, we approved a budget. We looked at how much grants we get from the state. Then we go down a little bit further. We look at how much fees and revenue we make as a town, and then there's a big difference, and that difference is made up through taxes. And so in a $162.7 million budget, we're looking for $133 million of taxes. So to do that, we have to set the mill rate, and the mill rate, just with straight math, is 29.13. So the mill rate goes from 29.03 to 29.13. That's a 0.1 mill increase, considered almost an essentially flat mill rate for conversation. And that's where we are now, at the point in the meeting where we approve that mill rate. Does anybody else want to speak on the mill rate at all before we move to a vote? And we need a motion. We're looking for a motion to approve a mill rate of 29.13 for fiscal year 2022, 2023.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Morrison.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Pocock. We'll do a roll call vote.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Any more discussion?
Nope.
No, I just want to say, I voted no for the cut on the Board of Ed. I thought that was too high, properly allocated across the town budget like we always do. Town and some of the Board of Ed. We just did straight from the Board of Ed. So therefore, I'm going to vote no.
Okay. Just a reminder, though, I always saw in my head that the setting of the mill rate being separate from the budget, just to put that out there. I can never, people vote how they vote. But we make a recommendation on the budget, we send it to town council. They could either cut more or do something with it and then send it back to us. A lot of times, it's not the exact budget we sent to them. It's not the budget that I would have sent, or not the budget anybody else would have sent. When it comes back, it becomes the town council's budget. So it's our obligation here just to decide whether we want to set the mill rate at the exact rate to fund the town council approved budget, or we want to set it lower, which would force money out of the rainy day fund, or we want to set the mill rate a little higher, which would force money into the rainy day fund. Those are the three. I always see that as the decisions that are on the table for us, not really to challenge the budget, because that was an earlier discussion, but that's just how I view it.
No, I agree, but the budget that the town council passed was our budget that
Right.
we handed to them, so they didn't make any cuts, and myself and Sue voted against the
Yes.
budget.
Yes, you did.
So therefore, we voted against the budget, and the increase, because it's our budget.
Can I just ask you both a quick question, what would you rather the mill rate be? We're talking about the mill rate. What would you rather
Well,
it be?
I wanted the budget to be properly allocated across the town, across.
Okay, so if it was properly allocated in your view, what
Well,
would you want the
got
mill
the
rate
four
to be?
votes too, so.
Yeah.
No, Kevin, it's a serious question.
I didn't want to cut as much on the board.
Oh, understand,
So
but if
what's
you
that
had
mean?
your way and
Okay,
you'd
if I
pass the
had my
budget you
way,
wanted,
okay,
what would you
here's
want the
what you
mill
wanna
rate
hear.
to be?
Here's what you want to hear.
Right.
I didn't want to cut as much on the Board of Ed. So what does that mean? That means the mill rate would have been a little higher. You know the answer.
No, I
You do.
don't
Well, I
until
hope you
said
know
it.
the
And
answer.
you know that
You're on the
you-
Board of
I
Finance.
don't until you said it. Thank you very
And you,
much.
Tony, wanted it to be
Thank you
different
very
also.
much. Thank you
wanted
very
it to be
much.
different also.
Yes, and I went along with what we agreed on, the budget going to the town council. So now I'm voting for
Some of you
29.13.
agreed on. So you go
Okay.
vote your conscience.
So let us make sure that mill rate is proper math. We believe 29.13 is the exact math to fund the town council budget, no more, no less.
That's correct.
And we have assurance on that. So we'll ask for, we have a motion, a second. We'll ask for a roll call vote.
Mrs. Zoni?
No.
Mr. Morrison?
Yes.
Mr. Bedoin?
No.
Mr. Pocock?
Yes.
Mr. Lebenik?
Yes.
And Chairman Larry?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-2.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Joe.
All right, thank you.
Bye. Okay, couple things before we just go further. Just want to tell everybody a little bit about the budget. There is a video anybody who's concerned could watch, because on behalf of this board, I presented the budget to the town council at their public hearing of April 25th. You could read the whole transcript of that is included in the minutes and included in the video. If you stream it, you could see the whole thing. But a couple of items, just because people watch our video, just to point out what's in there. A couple of things. This year, we experienced an increase in assets on the grand list of $150 million. At a current mill rate of 29.03, that growth generates $4.4 million of new taxes. On our grand list after revaluation stands at $4.587 billion. It's important to note this year, $3 million of the new taxes is coming from the appreciation of predominantly existing vehicles. Vehicle appreciation of this magnitude is unprecedented, as vehicles generally depreciate over time. So what I'm saying in short is vehicle taxes will increase this year because the vehicle values have increased, and they're valued by a third party. So even at the existing same mill rate, existing vehicle taxes will go up, and if you dig deeper, it's just supply chain issues are at the base of it, pushing the cost of used vehicles and new vehicles up. Revenue sources, I mentioned earlier, the Southington's proposed general fund budget of $162.7 million is funded by property tax, $133.7, state grants of $23.1 million, billing for town services and interest income of $5.4 million, and then the use of the excess in the rainy day fund of $1.8 million. That's how we fund the budget in the general fund budget. Just trying to see notable items. $3 million in revenue again comes from vehicle appreciation. Be aware, when taxes on vehicles will go up, existing vehicles. A reduction in one administrative staff position in general government, 2 new police officer positions, bringing us from 70 to 72 certified police officers, 3 new firefighter positions, but they are funded through a federal SAFER grant for 3 years, at which point the grant will run out and we'll retain the 3 firefighters on our own budget. And the Board of Ed, what else we got here? The governor's budget remained level funding for Southington. The state had the recent benefit of a federal grant revenue. When the state goes back to its own fiscal trajectory, that becomes a risk to us. And Board of Ed continues to have ESSER and American Recovery Act grant money extended due to COVID-19. This is the last year we expect that grant funding. So we just have to be prepared when these grants, whether it's for the firefighters, or grants to the state, which allowed the state to fully fund the town, or grants directly to our Board of Ed, when those grants are used up and no longer come to us, we're back on our own with funding. Some of those things have kept the mill rate low over the past few years. Capital plan, just a couple of things. The first year had $34.6 million in it. Notable projects, you just heard about the high school athletic fields, 17.4, the roofs, 16.9, I don't know, 17.4. There was a couple other things. 17.4, this is in the capital budget, not so much the public hearing item. But athletic field, 17.4, the roofs, high school, including the solar, and firehouse number 5 at $7 million. Sewer infrastructure at $2.8 million. Park improvements, including the rec park pool, at $2.6 million. Roads at $1.5 million. Heavy equipment, including street sweepers, dump truck, leaf machines, $1 million. And some other stuff, radios, vehicles, IT, and some equipment for $2.3 million. Funding sources for our capital, for our $34.6 million, the current year of the 5-year plan. We're going to bond 24.2 of it. American Recovery covers 5.7. Those are the COVID grants. And then cash from the fund balance, 4.6 million. So it just gives you a little insight into, aside from the normal stuff, that's what we're funding. And if you want to hear the whole thing, you can go to the town council meeting of April 25th and stream the thing or read the minutes where this is all written into the record. So thank you for that. Anybody else want to comment on the budget at all? Okay. Old business, the approval of the minutes for the April 13th meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Okay, review of
Mr.
revenues.
Chairman, if I may interrupt,
Yeah.
can we jump to Manager's Memo 1 and 2? We do have POE that can be dismissed if we do that.
Sure,
Thank
we
you.
can do that. Okay, Manager's Memo 1 relates to a bond ordinance of $6,920,000 for public hearing item number 1, which is the high school roof. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, and this applies to both ordinances, proposed ordinances, which is before, when we bonded, we have allowed the ability to also suggest that some of it can be funded from the reserves of the town. This doesn't have it in here, at least the language that we use, say, for the Wyshall Municipal Centre, which said to finance the portion of the appropriation not determined by the town council to be defrayed from the town's general fund balance. In other words, you can essentially you can use the fund balance if you need for a portion of it. I think on both of these, even though it's both amounts, well, the first one doesn't, but the second one does, outweighs what we can use at any one time from our fund balance. I think it behooves us to allow that language in here because we want to be as flexible as possible in the next 2 or 3 years coming up. And some of it was, what the chairman said from the budget. We want to fund these things, but I think we need to be flexible in how we go about funding. If we just have bonding only, when we may have some cash available to pay for it, I think we should allow that flexibility. It keeps us flexible. We're not, it doesn't force us in any way to do it. We can do it all bonds, or we can do a piece from the fund balance and the rest bonds. We need to keep that flexibility.
Does the language as
You
written
could-
box us out of that?
No.
Well,
We
well, you
made
can't-
different language
well, you-
when
the-
the Weishel Center.
The reason why we did different language for the Weissel Center was because there was the intention from the beginning. As for this one here, was the intention for bonding. Leave it up to
does-
the finance director, but we do have some options, but go ahead.
Right. So basically, this is an ordinance. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to use the full ordinance. So we're not tied to that. We've actually had ordinances put in place before where the boards, the board later decided to use cash for it. That has occurred.
What it does is it gives the, just for everyone to know, if the ordinance goes through as written, it gives us the ability
To do it.
The question is, if we don't want a bond, a future, but we'd have to go back to a future council and town council and board of finance to shift that, because right now, the two of us would not have permission to sign documents to that effect. We'd have to come back to you. So if in year 3, for instance, we're in a financial situation where we felt, or year 2, then you would raise it, we would discuss it, and we can come to you first and then the town council afterwards.
But you'd have to go through a process to do that.
Right.
You don't have.
Either way, we'd have to go through
We
the
did,
process.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
Either way.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Any more discussion on bond ordinance number 1? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote because of the magnitude.
Can we just read it into the,
Public
just one more
Yeah,
time?
I'll read it again.
Yep.
Ordinance number 1 is an ordinance appropriating $6,920,000 for costs related to the Southington High School roof project and authorizing the issue of $6,920,000 bonds and notes to finance the appropriation, the amount of such bonds and notes to be reduced by the amount of project grants received.
Thank you. Bond counsel wants the wording in there.
Wording's there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mrs. Zoni?
Yes.
Mr. Morrison?
Yes.
Mr. Bedoin?
Yes.
Mr. Pocock?
Yes.
And Chairman Leary?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the next one, thank you all. The next one is, relates to the bond ordinance for $16,945,000 from public hearing number 2. I'll read that. It's an ordinance appropriating $16,945,000 for costs related to the Southington High School athletic field project and authorizing the issue of $16,945,000 bonds and notes to finance the appropriation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Mrs. Zoni?
Yes.
Mr. Morrison?
Yes.
Mr. Bedoin?
Yes.
Mr. Pocock?
Yes.
Chairman Leary?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Now we'll go back to the top of the agenda. Is there? Thank you. Okay.
We lost our audience.
Review of revenues and expenses versus budget.
You lost your whole audience.
Yes.
I know.
A lot of them stream it on with the technology.
There we go. Okay. At the end of April, our prior year's taxes are $200,000 over budget. Our interest on taxes are $150,000 over budget. And I just wanted to say that we were looking to have a tax sale of properties for about 80 properties. And we've actually collected and worked out contracts so that we're down to 20. So basically, they've really been coming in with prior year's taxes and interest on taxes. And that's what we'd like to see, because obviously we don't want to sell anybody's property. Building permits and fees are $150,000 over budget. That is after the appropriation that we have here for the capital projects. Interest on investments are $15,000 over budget. Town clerk fees are $450,000 over budget. Again, after we transfer $205,000 that are on the agenda today. And then Kerma equity is $76,000, and pilot tiered program is $18,000. for a total of $1,059,000.
Ahead in revenue.
Ahead in revenue, correct. Reviewing the expenditure items, there's nothing that's come to light that's going to be an issue at this point. There are a few departments that are requesting transfers in order to complete their processes and expenditures for the year. Capital, I will get to this, I promise. It seems like time is flying, and it seems to be flying.
She's got one
I
more
said-
meeting, so she better get to it by one more meeting.
I said
We'll
to
put an appropriation in to make sure this gets done.
I keep telling him, it's another end of another month. I can't believe it. It's
It
just like,
moves fast. It moves so fast.
but anyway, we will get it done.
I'm sure you will.
Even if she has to come to the July meeting, she's going to get it done.
Didn't you already make me promise that already?
Yeah, you're already coming to the July meeting.
You are?
She is.
You already made me promise that.
Yeah. It's a closeout. I'm not going to close out with a new finance
Oh,
director.
oh, yeah.
We'll have the new finance director and Amelia will be here for that.
I get it.
We certainly hope so.
Yeah.
I think overlap would reduce risk and be very, very
Great,
wise.
good.
Okay. So let's do the subcommittee reports. The sewer committee, Mr. Morrison?
There's a few things. First off, this is sort of financial. For the plant upgrade, the final warranty items are being worked on, and that should come to an end pretty soon. Secondly, the Plantsville pump station rehabilitation. We had to do a change order for this, and it's to do with the electrical base pad. Essentially, hang on, I'll read you from the minutes. Essentially, we determined that the concrete pad for electrical enclosure is not sufficiently sized, and it's based on the size of the panels combined with the weight of the pad. So the engineer suggested we add rebar concrete to ensure the longevity of the installation. The staff agreed with it, and we unanimously approved a change order in the amount of $3,875.76. A notice, we're going ahead with the West Queen pump station. No real details on that as yet. And there's 3 pump station projects that are out to bid, which we expect in the next meeting tomorrow. We expect to see what happened with that. Okay, quickly. There's an issue to do with plant maintenance. It's to do with, I won't go into details because it's kind of odious, but we need 4 new butterfly valves in the primary sludge building in order to do maintenance more safely. And we were given a quote from $11,900. We sent it to the town council to be approved with an additional 10% contingency. And I believe that was approved. It's 13,090. Okay, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, Public Works, Mr. Bedoin, Mr. Pocock?
But the only the cost items, and the police department. The other thing it's costing us is in another. That's a cost factor.
Many years ago, the council decided with the Board of Ed technically by the BOE. So about 3 years ago, or so more than 3 years ago now, Highway Department took out the pavement into the area, put gravel down, so it's now a three-seasons path. It's not maintained during.
I mean, it's being used in good thing occasionally. Had a,
Any questions? Anyone? Okay, open space, Mr. Pocock, anything
I
cooking?
was, because I had a commitment out of state, I wasn't there, but
Self-insurance, Mr. Bedoin?
So for self-insurance, the claims for March came in pretty much on budget, so we're hoping that get back to normal, because the prior 2 months, they were a lot higher over than budget, and so we're hoping things go back to normal. But overall, for the year, we're over budget by 800,000, which we expected because of lack of people doing.
Do we think that's all like a?
We're hoping,
We're hoping.
we're hoping claims to get back to normal, so.
Yeah. Our consultant actually thought that maybe that might be the new norm. Was talking.
I mean, we're back to the norm?
Back to the
Basically,
old norm.
We're back to the pre-pandemic levels, because if you
Right.
take the numbers 2 years before the pandemic and you get to where we are right now. So looking more at the last 2 years as again, it's to be seen.
If
But
it,
we have sufficient reserves,
Yes.
so this being over budget this year as expected is not going to hurt us.
Economic strike, Mr. Morrison?
no meeting since the last board.
Okay. Subcommittees of our board, investment committee, anything cooking?
Nothing more than what Amelia said earlier.
Board of Fire Commissioners, Mr. Pocock, Mr. Bedoin, anything there?
The promotion,
what's that?
the captain is it captain promotion?
Lieutenant got promoted, as you know, Station 3, and there's going to be the 3. Yeah, we have a couple of injured officers, and obviously, as you know, this is the time of year people take vacation. Still, I was with the chief. Expect to do anything outside of the budget, but I do want to say that there's always retirements in all our departments, but the administrative assistant Maureen, humble opinion, has kept that fire department going through many chiefs. Is retiring. She's moving on to privately, but obviously publicly, to the two people in the liaison who know her very well. She simply worked for the fire department.
Yeah, just the promotion was a big thing, and talking about the 3 new firefighters.
Okay, have we talked at all about the shifts? Have there been discussions about appropriate shift? I know we had them on and off, but I just keep coming back to that. Have they talked about how to control overtime, and if there's different shift configurations that could be beneficial to that?
Go to negotiations, so we can't go into that part of it, but the report itself that we've all seen, their interpretation is that the
We heard the last
Yep.
discussion too.
So.
Okay. Any other committee reports? Any board communications? I do have just one thing, just to remind the public, when we had a lot of workshops and discussions here, although the last several years, through a couple different political party controls of the town council, the mill rate has been the increase in the mill rate has been very, very low. Many years it was a 0 or something close to it. Our forecasting is predicting that the upcoming year, 22-23, we just set the mill rate and it's essentially flat. It went up 0.1 mils. But we are right now, with the information we have available to us, forecasting that the 2023-2024 year and the 2024-2025 year will see mill rate increases a little bit in excess of 4% right now. Those numbers may change either way. There's a lot of risk factors in the environment now, but the biggest things affecting us are the end of the COVID-type grants that we received, and we use those to fund various capital projects on the town side, because that was money we had not asked for, not requested, but received. So we applied it to capital. And then on the Board of Ed side, it was used in a combination, some for capital, some to get through, some for COVID-related expenses, but there was additional funds used for operating expenses. So when those funds no longer come, that's a piece. When the SAFER grant no longer comes to fund the 3 firefighters, we will fund them. Our fuel, our gasoline and our diesel is locked in, our energy contracts. If they, when the term of that hedging expires, they will go back to market price, or we'll hedge again. That's an uncertainty. And general inflation right now is running 8.2%, I believe. That will, what that means is prices of goods and services will increase, and we consume a lot of goods and services. So we are predicting now, even without considering all of those factors, because we're trying to look at what's more likely to happen, we are predicting in excess of 4% tax increases in the year 2023-24 and 2024-25. Like to add anything to that?
Well, sure. I would take exception to the word predicting, in the sense that, we have a known set of stuff that's in front of us, a known actual quantities in terms of the debt service, in terms of some of the other things you mentioned. But that's a prediction, is if you allow something to happen. With this board, I'm sure in the next couple of years we'll go through a whole bunch of discussions over 3 months, like we usually do, and we'll come to some different, or maybe the same, maybe some different results. Because there's only so much money that obviously can come from the taxpayers. So I would seriously take exception to the word prediction. Knowledge is power. We know roughly what's ahead of us. We can deal with it, and we will. The only thing that worries me is essentially the unknown, which at the moment is inflation. How long it will run for, and that is something we certainly will have to deal with. But everything else that's known, we will deal with in the way we usually do.
A lot of the increase, too, is the capital projects that are...
Yeah, I did forget to mention that. It's a good point.
We've got to pay the principal and interest.
Yeah, when you look
voted
at...
on by the people of Southington, major projects, so...
And just to note them, right, we're a great point. But the major projects, the 16.9, the bond ordinance from tonight for the athletic fields at the high school, if that gets approved, this is all factored in. The 6.9 for the roofs, the roof on Southington High School, the solar panels, 4.5 for the purchasing of the development rights of that golf course, Southington Country Club, and we have also the library
16.9.
at 16.9. Yeah, and as Tony said, those are known. These are known items, and if the public votes for them, we then bond them and we have to pay for them. So there is a cause and effect. You do the upgrades, you pay for them. That's we as a town control that. But the real unpredictable thing, I'll agree with Tony, is the inflation. What's happening to us that's somewhat out of our control. We can do some things to adjust how much we consume of different things, but there's not much we can do when our fuel contracts and our hedging programs on energy and just supplies go up. And that's, I'm sure this board over the years has been through inflationary times before.
80% currently.
No,
I don't think it's
no,
ever
not,
been that
not
high.
like this.
That's 40 years. I mean,
Yeah,
the
40-year high. 40 years ago, this board.
we weren't here. I don't think.
But we'll do our best, right? As we always do. We take a year and we talk about a lot of things. We do what we do, and we try and do our best with the finance director, with the town manager, and with everybody on the board. Okay, moving along. Public communications. There's no one from the public here. So we'll move into the consent agenda. There are 3 items in the consent agenda. Again, this is money received that we're just appropriating back to the line items so it can be spent. So 3 items, I'd like to take them all together. $1,009,301 for the Board of Ed operations, $521 for the Police Department, School and Education, and $11,581 for street lighting, equipment and maintenance, loss damage. Somebody must have hit a couple of poles.
And we actually got the car and the insurance, which doesn't always happen.
Good. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as a group.
A second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 5-0, they all carry. Thank you. And now we get into manager memo number 3, $2,500, a transfer, $2,500 for the library utilities.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Library carries. Number 4 is in 2 parts. Transfer $900 assessor contracted services and $95 dues and conferences.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, number 5 is a transfer in 3 parts. $1,000 Police Department utilities, $1,500 Police Department School and Education, and $11,893 Police Department gasoline.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries 5-0. Just give me a second. I'm scrolling down to my memo.
Bond stuff's in there, so you got to get down there. Yeah.
All I wanted to see was the.
We're estimating how much the
Prior year to the current year, usage number was off.
usage is a little higher.
I
But
see it
I
here.
also think that they transferred some funds last year to cover this, so this is
Miss.
Offsetting.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're beyond that now.
So we're not that far off.
Yep, no, I see it. I'm looking at it now. Okay, the next item, number 6, is a transfer of $50,000 town attorney legal.
This is not because of that case, as we talked about. Yeah, what happens, obviously, is that we have a salary line because we anticipate that position being filled. We're taking the money out of the salary line and put it in so that I can pay the town attorney and assistant town attorney and some outside counsel, but most of it's to cover the town attorney and assistant town.
We have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the transfer.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, number 6 carries. Number 7's in 3 parts. They're transfers. $22,943 snow and ice overtime pay, $840 highway parks radio lease, and $6,300 highway parks equipment maintenance. We have a memo in the file on it.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, number 8, a transfer, $1,500 planning and zoning advertising.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Number 8 carries. Number 9, a transfer of $5,875 Barnes Museum building maintenance. The removal of a tree.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 10 is a transfer, $125,000 sewer fund plant maintenance.
Yeah. So moved. Unless you want an explanation.
Yeah, I see. We have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Oni. Okay, you want to give an explanation, Tony, or?
It's the victims of their own success in a sense that they've done so much lining work that in order to we put additional funds available, and they're going to need some money to cover the police coverage for traffic control. The deal with the police department doesn't come into effect until next year, so we are paying police.
July 1st, 20.
Understood. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, number 11 is in a bunch of parts. Transfers and appropriations. This is the capital budgeting. So $300,000 capital budget townwide roof replacement, $100,000 capital budget townwide heating, ventilating, and air conditioning replacement, $175,000 capital budget townwide IT infrastructure, $150,000 the GIS system, $500,000 capital budget repair and replace sidewalks, $50,000 capital budget townwide paving, $50,000 capital budget street sign upgrades, and $155,000 capital budget townwide vehicle replacement. 155,500 for a total of $1,480,500. Oops, wow. And
Matches the corresponding items we're getting it from, the line items we're getting it from. So that would
yeah,
take
there's
you
a
all
lot.
night to
There's a
read
million
those.
line
Yeah.
items it's coming from,
Yeah.
but it's a balanced.
Correct.
It's a balanced
Yes.
Yes.
entry.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 12A is in 3 parts.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yep.
I'm going to be asking you to table those.
Okay,
I did the
yeah,
information
you
on that.
sent that in the email. I
Yep.
just
So if I can get a table on all three.
motion to table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, 12A has been tabled.
Just a quick question. Is this to do with we haven't received the bids? Or?
No, we received the bids,
Okay.
but we received them on, what's today, Wednesday? We received them on
It's April 28th when they do. Or something.
last week. It was last Thursday. It
Last
was last
Thur- oh,
Thursday, so
okay.
we're still working on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Number 13 is an appropriation of $22,442, information technology computer maintenance.
The explanation of this one, Mr. Chair, as you remember, last fall in November, we needed to upgrade our systems to be able to get insurance through the insurance company. So I authorized the IT department to spend money on that, which is.
Okay, yeah, there was a memo here from Jed.
So moved.
Second? Yeah.
Motion, second, Mr. Pocock. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 13 carries. Number 14 is a transfer of $65,963, central dispatch, regular wages.
Just so the public knows, Mr. Chairman, we hold this money in
Yep.
contingency. The contract has been, obviously went through. This is to make up for the rest of the year with the union increases.
Second?
Motion, a second by Mr. Morrison this time. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 14 carries 5-0. Number 15, the last one, is a transfer of $4,300, Town Hall building maintenance. And, let's see if that's my whiteboard.
No.
No.
A couple of repairs to the Town Hall, including a doorway to the Finance Department and repairing several doors and replacing a faucet in the second floor sink.
Make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Review
Policy?
fiscal policies. The one thing I just want to bring up for discussion, we don't have to, we could talk about it later and just to consider. It has to do with the rainy day fund. Years ago, the rainy day fund, let me go back for a little history lesson. Around 2009-10, the rainy day fund was below the targeted level of 7%? Was it 7 back then? All right. But let's say it was around 7 or 8%. We were below it. We weren't even there. We achieved it and exceeded it, and we raised the policy to go to 9% and say that 9% of general fund revenues, I believe it's worked now, right? Same, if we have a balanced budget, it doesn't matter, right? But 9% of general fund revenues would be held in the rainy day fund. Right now, we're exceeding that. I'm wondering, and we could talk about,
Now it's 10.
It's 10. It's 10.
no, it's 10 now, I'm sorry.
We had
Yeah,
it
yeah, that's
raised
right.
for a
We,
while, and then
we moved
10.
it, we moved the policy to 10, and we've exceeded that. So now, I just want you to consider between maybe now and next meeting, if we want to look at that policy and move it even further up while the money's in there and while it's funded. It doesn't cost anything. It just sets the floor higher, and we have the money in there to do this. It's a conservative thing to do in a way. One of the things driving the discussion is to protect the bond rating as best we can, and the rating agencies like to see us be in this conservative fiscal position and have our reserves and maintain them, and at least take a conscious effort to review how much we maintain. A percent's still a percent, so it doesn't change the value of the money in there. It just raises the percent that we keep in there. So it may be something we want to consider. I'll put it on the agenda next meeting, but something for everyone to consider between now and then. Should we go up to 11 or should we go up to 12?
My only suggestion would be, obviously, is we come to a compromise.
Right.
If you go the other way, the bonding people will not be happy with us.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to be too aggressive with it and put us in a position where we may have to go the other way.
Sometimes every few years,
Yep.
going up a point helps.
What's the current rate right now?
We're currently at 14.6%.
But then that also locks us into every year the budget goes up $100. We have to put 10% in the, hold 10% in the rainy day fund. If we make it 12, every time the budget goes up $100, we'll have to make sure we have 12 in the rainy day fund. So it
Yeah.
will, it does affect us, but it also protects us.
Just Just a quick question, if you remember back, when it went up, as you said it was at 7, it went up. Is there any change in the risk factor for the town? Drove that up, or was it just because the town was growing, we should have more?
No, we were actually looking to go higher. It's just that that's where we were when we started this whole thing, is we were pretty much.
It wasn't
at
funded.
It wasn't,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't funded
It was the fact it
sufficiently.
wasn't funded,
Yeah,
right?
Once we saw that we had the funding,
yeah.
we clicked it up.
Years ago, we used to actually use fund balance to balance the budget.
We did not have a
Around
balanced
time,
budget
yes.
until 2010, 11,
Somewhere
or
around
11,
there,
12. We did not have a balanced budget. We were using our fund balance to balance the
For
budget.
operations.
That was a
No,
bad
yeah.
thing. We fixed it. So now we have an opportunity. But let's think about it for
And
next
our bond rating
meeting.
has reflected that. We also went up from, when I started. AA+.
That's good for us, especially in light of all the projects we've been tackling, not just this, but we've been tackling since 2009,
Yes.
or in the schools even before that, right?
Yep.
The schools even 7 or whenever the
Higher rating, the cheaper
Yes.
the bond. Interest rate we get as a town, so it's important to have a double A.
Well, let's consider it. I'll put it on the agenda next time around and maybe what we could do is circulate the policy again.
Absolutely.
We all have it, but,
It's actually in the package.
yeah, it's in the package?
It is in the
I
package.
didn't even go
yes.
down that far.
I put it at the end.
I have a copy of it, but
There's actually all our policies here. Fund
Yep.
balance, debt management.
Always fascinating reading.
all right, so it's in the package, so we have it. Just think about it. If it makes sense, maybe we'll talk about it amongst ourselves, see if we have a vote on it next time, if we want to move it or leave it. Okay. Favorite motion?
Actually, before you do that,
Yeah.
obviously, this is Amelia's last time, but on behalf of Amelia and I, this is our last setting of the mill rate.
Oh, last setting of mill rate.
The budget's her last time, so
We
this
need Joe
So
and a
on
pepperoni pizza.
on behalf of Amelia and I, thank you all. I know how difficult it is to do a budget in all the years, and most of you have been here, actually, all of you have been here for many, many years. On behalf of Amelia and I, thank you very much for the time you put in, workshops, et cetera, and the cheesy. Yeah, but other than that, thank you very much. And obviously, Amelia's with us for at least 2 more meetings, so I'll save myself for that later on. But on behalf of Amelia and I, thank you for all the time you put in. So.
But keep in mind, too, if we need to reduce risk and have some bridge time, I think, I can only speak for me, but I look at the board that we would probably appropriate something so we'd have some coverage in
That's
transition.
we've already discussed that
Yeah.
issue.
You know, it's like I told the council, they're trying to talk me into staying.
But we don't want to have a risk in any of the audits, any of those open grant reviews, or any of that stuff.
That's when you come back in as a consultant. And you get the big time.
Well, it's not.
That's not really the deal.
She lives 10 miles from here. It's not a big deal.
Look what happened to Sherry with all her consultant things, you know?
With that, Mr. Chairman,
Very happy
I'm all
with
set
it.
for the night.
Okay. We have a
you.
motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:05. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We don't have to hit all the miles